What Iran is doing right now is making the entire region hold its breath, because in just the last few hours, something changed. Iran is not calming down. It is sending signals that this conflict is far from over. Right now, reports confirm Iran is escalating its stance against the United States, using stronger language, stronger threats, and more pressure than before. At the same time, Iran has made a new offer to end the conflict. But here's the twist. The United States is not accepting it, and that is where the danger begins. See, Iran is trying to force a deal where the war stops, the blockade ends, and control over the Strait of Hormuz changes. Wall Street Journal. This one location is the heartbeat of global oil. If it closes, the world economy feels it instantly. And right now, that threat is real. Shipping through this region has already dropped sharply, almost 90% in some areas. CBS News. Think about that. Oil, trade, energy, all hanging by a thread. But here's where things get even more serious. Iran is not just talking, it is warning. A direct warning. If the US attacks again, Iran says it will respond with long and painful strikes. Fox News. Not symbolic, not limited, but widespread, across the region. And this is no small conflict anymore. This is already a multi-country situation. The US, Israel, Iran, and groups backed by Iran, like Hezbollah, they are already involved. Missiles have been launched, drones have been used. Regional countries are already feeling the impact. Wikipedia. But here's the most confusing part. At the same time all this is happening, the US leadership is saying something very different. They are saying, the war is over, that hostilities have terminated, The Guardian. But on the ground, troops are still there, threats are still active, oil routes are still unstable. Nothing actually feels over. And this creates a dangerous situation, because when both sides say different things, that's when miscalculation happens. That's when one move can trigger something much bigger. Now think about this carefully. Iran is under pressure, economic pressure, military pressure, political pressure. And history shows, when pressure reaches this level, countries don't back down easily. They take bigger risks. And right now, Iran has options. It can close the strait completely, attack regional bases, use proxy groups, target global infrastructure, or make a deal. But the United States also has options. Accept the deal and reduce tensions, or reject it and increase pressure even more. And right now, it looks like both sides are choosing pressure, not peace. That is why experts are starting to worry, because this is no longer just a conflict. This is a tipping point, a moment where one wrong move could pull the entire region into something much bigger. And the biggest question right now is this just pressure before peace, or the beginning of something much more dangerous? And that question cannot be answered without going back, because what is happening right now did not start today. It has been building, slowly, step by step, for years. The tension between Iran and United States has always been there, but things changed after the nuclear deal collapsed. That deal once kept limits on Iran's nuclear program. In exchange, Iran got economic relief. But when the US pulled out, everything started to break. Sanctions came back, hard. Iran's economy started shrinking. Its oil exports dropped, its currency lost value, and pressure kept rising. At first, Iran showed patience. It stayed inside limits. It waited, hoping the deal would come back. But it didn't. So Iran changed its strategy, slowly, but clearly. It began increasing uranium enrichment, step by step, higher levels, closer to weapons grade. Not openly saying it wants a bomb, but moving closer to that line. At the same time, Iran also expanded its regional reach through groups. Not direct war, but indirect power. Groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon, militias in Iraq, Houthis in Yemen, all connected in different ways, all part of a wider network. This created something new, a shadow conflict. Not one big war, but many small ones, spread across the region. Then came direct hits, strikes, counterstrikes, covert operations. And one key pattern started to appear. each side testing the other, but not crossing a full red line. But recently, that pattern started breaking. The conflict involving Israel added fuel to everything, because Israel sees Iran as its biggest threat, especially its nuclear progress. So Israel acted, targeted strikes, operations deep inside, and Iran responded. Now, the shadow war became visible. Missiles were no longer hidden. Drones were no longer denied. Everything became more open, more direct, more risky. And then came the biggest shift, the involvement of the United States again. Not just watching, but actively reacting, deploying forces, protecting allies, sending warnings. According to Reuters and BBC reports, military activity in the region has increased sharply. Naval presence, air defense systems, troop movements, everything pointing to preparation, not de-escalation. And here is the key turning point, the Strait of Hormuz. Strait of Hormuz is not just water, it is power. Nearly 20% of the world's oil passes through it. If Iran blocks it, even partially, oil prices don't just rise, they explode. And Iran knows this. That is its strongest card. Not nuclear weapons, not missiles, but geography. In the past, Iran threatened to close it, but never fully did, because that would mean full war. But now, the signals are different. Ships are avoiding the area. Insurance costs are rising. Military escorts are increasing. That means the threat is no longer just talk. And here's something most people miss. This is not just about Iran versus US. There are other players watching closely. China depends heavily on oil from this region. Europe fears an energy crisis. Russia sees opportunity in chaos. So every move here does not stay here. It spreads. Now imagine this scenario. Iran feels cornered. It decides to show strength. It blocks part of the strait. The US responds militarily. Israel joins in. Proxy groups activate. And suddenly, this is no longer a regional issue. This becomes a global crisis. But there is another path too. Iran uses pressure to force negotiation. The US agrees to partial relief. Tensions cool down, and the region stabilizes. Two completely different futures, both possible, right now. And that is what makes this moment so dangerous. Because we are not watching a stable situation, we are watching a decision point, a moment where history can turn very fast. And the deeper question is not just what is happening, but why both sides are willing to take this risk now. Because when you look deeper, this is not just about weapons or territory. This is about power, survival, and timing. Start with Iran. Right now, Iran is playing a very calculated game. On the surface, it looks aggressive, but underneath, it is strategic. Iran knows one thing very clearly. It cannot win a full war against the United States. That's not its goal. Its goal is to make war too costly, too painful, too unpredictable. How? Not by one big attack, but by many small pressures. This is called asymmetric strategy. Instead of fighting directly, Iran spreads the battlefield across regions, across groups, across time. So if conflict grows, it doesn't stay in one place. It spreads to Iraq, Lebanon, Yemen, Syria, multiple fronts, multiple risks. Groups like Hezbollah and the Houthis, they are not random players. They are part of a larger network, a pressure system. So if the US strikes one place, the response may come from another. Unexpected, delayed, but powerful. Now look at the United States. Its strategy is very different. The US wants control, stability, protection of global trade, especially oil routes. But here's the problem. The US also has limits. It cannot afford another long war in the Middle East. Public support is low, costs are high, and global focus is already divided. Because the US is not dealing with just one issue. There's China rising fast. There's Russia already in conflict zones. There's pressure in Europe, and tensions in the Pacific. So opening a full war with Iran would stretch everything. Military, economy, global influence. That is why the US is trying something very careful. Strong enough to deter, but not strong enough to trigger full war. But here's where things get dangerous. Because both sides are trying to stay just below the line. But that line is getting thinner. Now bring Israel into this, and everything becomes more intense. Israel sees this very differently. For Israel, Iran's nuclear progress is not a long-term issue. It is immediate. Israel believes, if Iran gets too close to a nuclear weapon, there may be no second chance. So Israel is more willing to act early, more willing to strike first, more willing to take risks. And that creates pressure on the US, because if Israel acts alone, the US may still get pulled in. Now look at the hidden layer, the economic game. If the Strait of Hormuz is disrupted, oil prices surge. Who benefits? Russia can benefit from higher oil prices. It strengthens its economy. It weakens Western countries. China, on the other hand, does not want instability. It needs steady energy flow, cheap energy, predictable markets. So China may push for calm, quiet diplomacy, behind the scenes. Europe? Europe is in a fragile position, energy sensitive, economically exposed. Another shock could hit hard. So now, you have a situation where Iran wants leverage, US wants control, Israel wants prevention. Russia sees opportunity, China wants stability, Europe fears impact, all moving at the same time, in the same space, with different goals. This is not just conflict anymore. This is a complex system, and in complex systems, small actions can create massive reactions. Now imagine this. One missile hits the wrong target, one ship gets attacked, one misread signal, and suddenly, there is no control left. That is why experts are warning, not because war is certain, but because the margin for error is almost gone. And the real question now is not who is stronger, but who miscalculates first. Who miscalculates first? That is now the most dangerous question in the Middle East, because this crisis is not moving slowly anymore. It is moving like fire. One spark, one ship, one missile, one wrong order, and the whole region could change overnight. The most immediate danger is still the Strait of Hormuz. The US has now warned shipping companies not to pay Iran any tolls or fees for safe passage through the strait, saying those payments could trigger sanctions. Reuters reported that this warning came after Iran pushed a new proposal involving ship passage and talks through Pakistani mediators. Reuters. That means the conflict is no longer only military. It is also economic. It is legal. It is financial. And it is global. Because if companies cannot safely pass, and cannot pay Iran, and cannot trust US protection, then trade freezes, insurance costs rise, oil prices rise, and ordinary people feel it at gas stations, in food prices, and in electricity bills. This is how a regional crisis becomes a global crisis. Not all at once, but piece by piece. First, ships slow down, then prices rise, then markets panic, then governments react. And when governments react under pressure, mistakes happen. Right now, the United States wants to show strength. It wants to prove that Iran cannot control one of the world's most important sea routes. But Iran also wants to show strength. It wants to prove that it cannot be attacked, sanctioned, and cornered without making the world pay a price. So both sides are sending the same message in different ways. We will not back down. And that is why the future looks so unstable. If Iran steps back, it may look weak inside its own country. If America steps back, it may look weak in front of allies. If Israel steps back, it may fear Iran will rebuild and come back stronger. So everyone is trapped by pride. Everyone is trapped by fear. Everyone is trapped by their own red lines. Now, if this crisis gets worse, the first stage may not be a full war. It may be more pressure, more ships stopped, more sanctions, more cyber attacks, more drone strikes, more proxy attacks, small fires everywhere. Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, the Red Sea, the Persian Gulf. Each one may look separate, but together, they can become one large regional collapse. And the biggest danger is not that leaders plan a giant war. The biggest danger is that they lose control of a smaller one. A militia attack kills US soldiers. A missile hits a major oil site. A ship sinks in the strait. Israel strikes deeper. Iran answers harder. Then suddenly, no one can pull back. But there is another path, a narrow path. Iran may use this pressure to force a deal. The United States may accept a limited agreement. China may push quietly for calm because it needs steady energy. Europe may support diplomacy because it fears another energy shock. And regional powers may push both sides to step away from the edge. That path is still possible, but it is getting harder. Because every day this crisis continues, trust gets weaker, anger gets stronger, and the price of compromise gets higher. The real winners in this chaos are not ordinary people, not families, not workers, not small countries caught in the middle. The real winners are those who benefit from fear. Oil sellers who gain from higher prices, arms industries that gain from more weapons, political hardliners who gain from anger, and rival powers that gain when America, Europe, Iran, and Israel are locked in crisis. The losers are much easier to see. People in the region, people paying higher prices, soldiers sent into danger, families living near military targets, and countries that have no control over this conflict, but still pay the cost. This is why the next few days matter so much. Because the Middle East is not just facing another round of tension, it is standing near a chain reaction. If one link breaks, the rest may follow. And the frightening part is this: collapse does not always begin with a huge explosion. Sometimes it begins with one decision, made in fear, made in anger, made too fast. And once that decision is made, history does not wait. So now the world is watching Iran, watching America, watching Israel, watching the Strait of Hormuz. And behind every warning, behind every military move, behind every speech, there is one silent question growing louder. Can this crisis still be controlled? Or has the region already entered a collapse that no one can stop?